Hey, once again, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Buford PUSSER University of Criminal Justice. And today we're going to be talking about the legend versus the truth. Now, just for the record, I am speaking from some prepared notes. Didn't feel much like doing a video this week due to the injuries I received in the accident 2 weeks ago, in which I got 5 broken ribs, two of them which are broken in multiple places, a torn rotator cuff in my left shoulder, and a broken left clavicle or collarbone. But at any rate, need to keep on keeping on, try to stay up with things. So today I thought I would just make a brief video where we talk about the legend versus the truth and how that Buford had very much had a propensity to lie about his reputation. And, we might start off from the time that he was in high school. For instance, while he was in high school, it's said that he would do things like cut his forearms with a knife, not seriously, and then tell all of his friends that he was attacked by a gang of boys in Savannah and was cut up. Now, oddly, we find that neither Buford nor his parents reported this to the police department in Savannah, nor did they report it to the sheriff's office over in Hardin County. So, it's one of those things that just has no backing. Then there's also the time that he claimed that he and some friends went down to the state line to the White Iris, where he watched as Louise Hathcock murdered a young naval aviator with a ball peen hammer. And of course, as you know, if you've been watching this series on YouTube, I've located the aviator's family, his sons, in Pensacola, Florida, and learned that the individual was Kenneth Wayne McCoy, and he didn't die until November of 2012, well after Buford died. They told me the story that their father had told them, and obviously Buford lied about all this. They just seemed to be a thing that he would often do. Now, Buford's next big lie was that he was a member of the Marine Corps. Now, what most people don't realize is that in order to be considered as a Marine, you have to graduate your boot camp. He never did. He was discharged on a medical basis for asthma, a problem that he never seemed to suffer from except while he was in the Marines. He'd been a high school athlete, and afterwards he was a wrestler professionally. And asthma never seemed to bother him in either of those incidents. It's never mentioned other than the Marine Corps. So you have to wonder what the lie was all about. Buford couldn't seem to stop lying. It was just a continuous thing with him because after he was discharged from boot camp, he returned home, and while he was there, he and his friend, Billy Christopher, decided to take a short trip over to Memphis one day. Now, Christopher was driving his vehicle and was involved in an accident. I don't know the details of the accident itself. However, afterwards, Buford and Carl sued the Christopher family because Buford had a broken back. Now, I do have court documents that show that the Christopher family was found not to be liable in this case. So you have to wonder what the grounds were for Buford and Carl to bring this lawsuit to begin with. It just sounds like something that was cooked up between the two of them. Well, after he recovered from his back injury, he states that he went down to the state line, visited the plantation club, and while he was there, he was beaten, cut up, and robbed of his mustering out pay from while he was a recruit. What makes it so difficult to understand this story is that after he was beaten, cut up, robbed, neither he nor his father, Carl, ever filed a police report. There's no medical records to support this claim. Nothing at all. It's as if it didn't happen, probably because it didn't happen. Be sure and hit that subscribe button to get notification of new videos as they're released. Now you have to wonder why Buford would tell all these lies at this stage in his life and career, because he didn't know he was going to be famous. Nothing had happened yet that was, you know, that noteworthy. So why was he lying about all this? Why did he feel like it was necessary? It's like the uh, claim that he was shot 8 times. Now, when you look at that and you hear it for the first time, you think there are 8 different instances where someone pulled a gun on Buford and he was shot, uh, or a limited number of incidents where he was shot, sometimes multiple times. And the only serious one he ever had was the one to his chin. All the others were minor wounds where he would have a graze on his arm or a graze on his abdomen, things like that. Never anything serious. He never spent more than a night in the hospital in any of those instances except for the alleged ambush. And we'll get back to the ambush here in a little bit. Same thing applies, though, to the 7 times he was stabbed. Think about this for a moment. It's like the time he was stabbed by the hitchhiker. He stops, picks the individual up, puts him in the car with him, doesn't get ID, doesn't call anything in, and then later claims that he was stabbed 5 times by this individual. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows if it even happened. All we had was Buford's word. Now, we've already established that Buford was indeed a big liar. Then there was the other instance where Buford was working traffic at the scene of a house fire where there were casualties. And this is the only time that there was ever a witness to any of these attacks. And that witness was County Coroner Ward Moore. Now, Moore was there because a couple of people had perished in this fire. He said that Buford had stopped a car that he felt like was carrying moonshine. And a little altercation occurred. Buford got up on the hood of the car, and the car drove off with Buford on the hood, and the guy was reaching out and beating him with a wrench. But Ward says that Buford was not stabbed. First he heard of it was a couple of days later as he's walking down the street in Selmer, and he hears Buford's Uncle Ben telling the story about how Buford was stabbed. So he confronted Ben Pusser about it and asked him why he was telling this obvious lie. And he said, well, that's because that Buford gets more votes at election time when people hear stories like this. Now, if you'll recall, last week I did a story on internet Karens, these being people that will believe whatever they want to believe, regardless of how much evidence that there is to persuade them that things happened a different way. And I find these people to be kind of funny. I don't know why the evidence doesn't mean anything to them. It's just that they are so much in love, I guess, with the legend that the truth means nothing to them. And there's lots of them out there. And a lot of you know who they are. At any rate, this takes us up to the death of Louise Hathcock and what happened there. You know, that was one of those things where Buford claimed that he was there to serve a couple of warrants. She invited him into her room to explain everything that was going on at the state line, when in fact she was the only one of the state liners that was left and still in business. Everyone else would either gotten out of the business, had been killed, were in prison, or whatever. But at any rate, Buford claimed he went into the room with her. She pulled a gun, fired a shot at him, missed. He pulled out his revolver and shot her. The thing is, her autopsy report shows that she was shot in the back twice before she was shot in the head as she lay on the floor. Now, why is this so important? because others heard it a different way. They claimed that they heard Louise begging for her life. Then they heard his gunfire to be followed by the single pop from her gun. So, why does his story not match those of others? This is the one where his chief deputy, Jim Moffat, even quit and left his job as chief deputy for a short time. Buford somehow talked him into coming back. I guess that has something to do with keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Maybe he felt like that Jim had seen too much and he now considered Jim to be a potential enemy. At any rate, then you go on down to the January 1967 ambush. Again, no eyewitnesses. This is a case where that Towhead White had escaped, or actually just walked off from Maxwell Prison in Alabama. And Towhead was the one person that Buford was truly afraid of. So he was pulling out all the stops to get Towhead arrested. So he claimed that while down near the state line one night, he stopped a vehicle for speeding. As he walked up to it, shots were fired, and he was left laying there for dead. Now, he was shot with a little 25 caliber handgun, which is something that Towhead would probably never have used. I have a suspicion that Towhead wouldn't have used anything less than a 38. But at any rate, Buford only spent the one night in the hospital, and he spent that entire night, according to sources, directing the search for Towhead, even though he said that he couldn't identify the people who were in the vehicle when the shots were fired. So why was he directing a search for Towhead at that time? Makes no sense. The next incident where he just really got caught up in a lot of lies was the August 12th ambush. Now, we've gone over this so many times, I'm not going to go into the details. Those that are new, they can go back and watch the series that I've done on the ambush. But, he lied about so much there, about being chased down by a vehicle in the pre-dawn hours when it was dark, the vehicle using no headlights, saying that it caught up with him by the time he reached the bridge, talking about how Pauline was just wounded at the first ambush site and killed at the second ambush site. None of this adds up, but yet the internet Karens of the world want to believe all this. Beyond that, there's all of his claims about how he cleaned up the state line. Yet nobody can tell me a single place that he actually closed down. They can't tell me a single state liner that he sent to prison. So how did he clean up the state line? Why do the internet Karens want to give him credit for this? And then they refuse to answer. And some of them are well-educated people. Buford also had a lot of problems with infidelity, had several girlfriends, but yet he was known to be a man with strong family ties. Go figure that one. Then there were his various lawsuits that he got involved with when it became apparent that Walking Tall was going to be made. Now, of course, Walking Tall was a fictional account of his career in law enforcement. But by this time, everybody was being fed a line about, what a great sheriff he was. Can't tell that he really did any more than any other sheriff. But his history was almost entirely fabricated. But yet, it was Eddie Bond that first made him famous by recording songs about him. And then W.R. Morris writing The 12th of August. And there was a corporation formed, the PUSSER Corporation, that included Buford, his personal attorney, Lloyd Tatum, Eddie Bond, and W.R. Morris. And Buford and Tatum sued both Bond and Morris into giving up their shares in the stock in the company I guess without really telling them that there was going to be this big movie, Walking Tall, that was made. So that way they benefited from it financially. So folks, I don't understand it, why all the internet Karens like uh, Karen Danielle Boone and Karen Ivy and so on choose to believe that this was a true story that they tout it to be. They attack me for trying to straighten out all this mess. But there you have it, folks. If anybody can straighten me out on this and show me where that I've got it wrong, hey, so be it. I'm just after the facts. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care if whichever way this story goes. It means nothing to me. I wasn't there. I wasn't involved. I didn't know any of the people. I just thought it was an interesting story that I needed to check out. Having been in law enforcement myself, I just feel like it's important for a law enforcement officer to have integrity. Buford didn't have that. Buford would lie. He would cheat. He would do whatever he wanted to get ahead. To me, he was a bully with a badge. So, at any rate, I'll leave it off with this. I would like to say again, I appreciate everyone who's sent their well wishes my way. Hopefully, I'll be better before long. Be able to get back down into some uh, serious subjects on the videos. Like I say, this week, uh, just had a bad week, lots of pain. They say that comes from having broken ribs. And I can tell you that's true. At any rate, until we get together again, just remember the truth has no agenda. Thanks.